Hey, it's Juck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. You know, the worst thing about recording on the road is I'm not familiar with my equipment that I use on the road because I very rarely use it. And yesterday, I recorded a 45-minute show. Do you see this red? And when it's on red, that means it's not recording my voice. And that was a bummer. That was a real bummer. And I'd have looked like a real idiot if I released a 45-minute video with no audio to go along with it. Not as bad as Sharon Moore looked earlier this week. And I realize I'm a day behind the news here, guys. Bear with me. I've got to address this. I've just got to address that this dude came out to a press conference with one of those mechanics jackets on with the script that says Carl, you know, the white patch that says Carl, and tried to sell this as, this is why I'm wearing this jacket, to tell the guys, we got to go to work. It's my blue collar. Are you kidding me, dude?
To make sure it doesn't happen again. So the message really is simple. We got to go back to work. You know, that's the reason I got the blue collar jacket on today. We got to go back to work right now. There's no pouting. There's no.
This dude's a total fool. He is a total fool. That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen a coach do. The fact that he did that unironically. He dressed in costume, which of course spurned a ton of more creative Buckeyes than myself to absolutely rip him apart. And I'll just go ahead and run that next to me here as I talk. They are down bad, man. And look, I don't think the team is like right where it should be at this point, in my opinion. This is right where I expected them to be. 2 losses, got an opportunity to get into the game with a chance to go to the playoffs if they beat Ohio State. Of course, they got to get by Washington this Saturday. Washington, we saw what Ohio State did to them, and Damon Williams, who went out the very next game, 500 yards, 2 games later, 500 yards of offense himself. The dude's a beast. He's a beast. He's rolling into Michigan this Saturday. Are they going to be able to contain him? That defense, nowhere near Ohio State's defense, but they're pretty good. I think they're ranked in the top 30-ish in total defense. They're a good defense. They're a good squad. Will he be able to beat them? And that would be 2 years in a row that Washington beat them. Going to be an interesting game, certainly be a fun one. And I'll be home. I'm getting home on Friday night, so I'll be home on Saturday. We'll live stream the Buckeyes game at Wisconsin. And of course, the Buckeyes head up to Wisconsin now. The Badgers, they have a bye week after this game. And you could see that might line up perfectly. After watching Luke Fickell's press conference, and I showed it here the other day, he sounds like just a totally defeated, broken man. And if I was in the administration, it would be hard to not fire him at this point because he just sounds like he's given up. I know he won't give up, but it sounds like he's accepted defeat here, at least for this season. And you just can't have that rotting and festering around your program. It just doesn't matter how much it costs at this point. It's got to go. However, I would hate for Ohio State to be the last team that he played that beat him bad at Wisconsin. Of course, we don't know how bad Ohio State's going to beat him, as Ryan Day is fixated on playing the game within the game, which I am convinced the game within the game is titled, How Many Ways Can the Tight End Screw Up the Running Game? That's the title of the game within the game that he's playing, because I just got done watching that All-22 from the Illinois game, and these dudes, my gosh, did they ruin things. It was like a comedy of errors. They have no idea who they're supposed to block on each play. They're trying to put them in all these different alignments. They're confusing everything. And when they're not, Will Kazmarek is missing blocks uncharacteristically. Max Clare is getting totally blown to bits. Like, he looks like a receiver out there blocking sometimes. And while it looks improved in some games, other games, it's like, my gosh, this guy's not good at blocking. So is that the game within the game? I don't know. The game I'm playing, the game within the game, is better than Bama. Bama beat them 38-14. I live in the world of online crap talk. I just want it to be better than Bama. So as long as they beat them by better than 38-14, I'll be happy. And I'd rather Luke Fickell not get fired after losing to the Buckeyes. Ryan Day, of course, had his press conferences on Tuesday and on Wednesday. And I don't think a whole lot interesting came out of that other than he was asked if 12 and 13 personnel is working out like he wants it to in the run game, if he's happy with it. Here's what he had to say about that.
I'm just curious. Do you think you're getting what you want out of 12 personnel right now in the run game?
Yeah, I think so. It's a different. The surfaces are different. When you're in like the game with one tight end, two tight ends, and three tight ends, it all brings different things to the table. And then you look at the whole on. When you give something, you get something. When you put 12 in the game, they have to make a decision. Do they go to base or do they go to nickel? And then from there, you kind of build and you go and you try to identify what their plan is. And when you have these multiple groupings in the game, you have to have balance, but also you have to look at it like not just the running game, but like what does the passing game look like? Does that maybe open some things up in different areas? Like we have to.
He was also asked incessantly about explosive plays, which I think a lot of people just automatically equate explosive plays to shots of 20-plus yards downfield. You can get explosive plays a lot of different ways. I mean, that Jeremiah play that was absolutely blown up blocking when they let the dude run right through the lane, that was Max Clare's responsibility, by the way, a tight end. That was going to be an explosive play for sure. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get explosive plays. If we look at the running game, Bo Jackson has 10 explosive plays on the year on his own. And a lot of different ways. And Ryan Day talked about that. But the offense certainly hasn't been pushing the ball down the field. There were several shots, again, for Julian Sayin to push the ball down the field. It seems like now, I originally thought maybe they weren't not allowing him to, but, discouraging him from pushing it down the field. I'm starting to think maybe it's a confidence issue that he's just not ready to push it down the field. I would think that there's going to be a game at some point this year where Julian needs to win the game. And there might be a time where Ohio State is down and he needs to win the game and he needs to push it down the field. I would think you would want to manufacture that. You'd probably get into the point of the season right now where you would want to manufacture those opportunities for him just to get him to pull the trigger, to take those chances. And for everybody who says, why would you show it when talking about the offense? You can also say, well, why wouldn't you take those chances when you have a defense that can make sure that it's not going to hurt you? You can throw a couple interceptions and it's not going to hurt you because of this defense. I don't know, man. There's a whole dialogue going on about this offense right now where everybody's either on one side or the other. You got a whole lot going on here. You got the tight end issue, and I think that really is the cause of most of the clunkiness feeling of this entire offense. I thought the tight end thing at the beginning of the year was pretty cool. I liked it. I like Will Kazmarek as a blocker and the versatility that he provides. He can catch a ball here and there. And then Max Clare, everything that we kind of thought Max Clare was coming in. And today we're going to talk about that transfer portal class. But everything we thought Max Clare was coming in, maybe we're now seeing a little bit of it on the receiving end in the last 2 games with 9 receptions. Unfortunately, he just had a really, really rough day blocking at Illinois. I mean, bad. So, with Jelani not really playing much at all, and it's pretty clear that all the things we hope Jelani might be, he's not going to be this year. Maybe he'll be that next year, but it's not happening this year. Nate Roberts obviously has done a good job working in his H-back role, playing as a fullback. He's done a good job, but all in all, Bennett Christian had a couple of rough blocks. It doesn't seem like it's something that you would want your offense to be 50% of the time with multiple tight ends. But like a lot of things, when Ryan Day finds something he likes, man, he goes all the way in. And we can talk about that with the lack of plays as well. And that is a whole nother topic. Like the season's so much longer. No, it's not. It's not so much longer. It's 1 game longer. And with the rule changes and the play clock changes that took away 4 plays a game, it's actually only half a game longer in plays. How's it 1 game longer? It's 1 game longer because it took 15 games, usually the vast majority of the time, to win a national championship in the 14 playoff. And it takes 16 games, the vast majority of the time, it's going to take 16 to win the championship in the 12-team playoff. That's 1 game longer. It's 1 game longer, guys. 1 game. but really only a half a game's worth of plays. And if you look at Ryan Day's offense in 2023, which was the 93rd slowest offense, this slowing down the offense isn't new. He's slowed down the offense every single year he's been at Ohio State, including when he was an offensive coordinator. In fact, if you go back to 2018, if that team in 2018 had gone on to win the national championship in 15 games, and this current team goes on to win the national championship in 16 games, this team will have played 4.5 games less of offensive football. That's how many less plays. 4.5 entire games less of plays. That's pretty extreme, right? When he finds something he likes, man, he goes all in, buddy, all in. In the tight ends this year, that's his thing, man. The tight ends are his thing. The plays, that's his thing. Less plays. There are even 3 less plays than last year. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe he wants to play 40 plays of offense. And some people love this. I hate it. I hate it personally. But hey, if it results in a national championship, it results in a national championship. I just don't think there's any way you can tell me with a straight face that you think playing an extra 10 plays a game is going to not okay, you were going to win that national championship, but you played 10 extra plays a game, and now you don't got it. Now you lost the national championship. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. Anyway, whatever. I don't know how I got off on this again, man. But let's talk about this transfer portal class because look, there's not a lot to talk about this week. The Wisconsin game makes me sad. I'll be quite honest. It makes me sad as someone who grew up really respecting the Wisconsin program. I spent a lot of summers in Kenosha, Wisconsin with my Uncle Mark. They're, obviously Badger fans up there. My Aunt Patty's a Badger fan from Wisconsin. It's a program like outside of the Buckeyes in the Big Ten that I've always kind of rooted for, right? If they're playing somebody else, I usually root for Wisconsin. So what's happened to this program has made me really sad, and I hate it. And I especially hate it that it's happened under Luke Fickell's watch, and now they've all turned on him, and they hate him. And I hate seeing that. And when you look at the difference between Luke Fickell and the job he's done at Wisconsin and James Franklin and the job he did at Penn State, and that dude just got booted, I mean, it seems like it's coming pretty soon here for Lukester. Which sucks, man, which sucks. And I just don't know how much time we can spend talking about that game. When we talk about other games in the Big Ten this week, obviously we got the game Michigan and Washington. What else do we get? Nebraska, Minnesota. Nebraska now ranked 25th in the country. They'll play at Minnesota, and that's a pretty interesting game. Nebraska's still with the shot at the playoffs, so we'll definitely be paying attention to that one on Saturday at Juck'S Studio, as well as, of course, at 7:30, USC plays number 13 Notre Dame. USC now number 20 in the country, Notre Dame number 13. USC is 5-1. They've got to play Oregon later on in the season. If they can now, they had to beat Michigan and split between USC and Notre Dame. I'm sorry, between Oregon and Notre Dame. If they can beat one of Oregon or Notre Dame, USC is going to the playoffs. On the other side, for Notre Dame, this is a knockout game. Notre Dame can most likely now make it to the playoffs if they run their schedule. If USC beats them, and this is the only real shot there is at Notre Dame losing from here on out, Notre Dame's going to be in the playoff. Who do you want in the playoffs? Do you want Notre Dame? Do you want USC? Who would you be more scared of matching up with? I think at this point, I would rather match up with Notre Dame. The USC offense is explosive as heck, and I think the Ohio State offense can be explosive as heck, but man, they got to rep it. They got to rep it at some point because they are not right now. I would be a little more afraid of a USC matchup than a Notre Dame matchup. I think so. I think Jaden Mayab is an excellent quarterback. Obviously, Mekhi Lemon's a great receiver. Mekhi Lemon is Yahoo's receiver of the year halfway through the year, which also just disgusts me that we have Jeremiah Smith and he is not winning the halfway Yahoo receiver of the year, right? He's also not on the first team All-American list in the Athletic. 2 wide receivers, none of them named Jeremiah Smith on the first team halfway through the season All-American list. I don't like that. I don't appreciate that one bit. But the Buckeyes did have 5 players on that total team. On the defense, you had Caden Curry, you had Arvell Reese, and you had Caleb Downs. On the second team, you had Jeremiah Smith and Alex Stiles. So you got 5. That was the most of any team, as the Buckeyes are clearly the most talented roster in college football. Yay, Buckeyes. Other big games this weekend coming up. Why are we talking about this on a Thursday? I don't know. Let's not talk about this. Let's get into this transfer portal class. And I want to talk about this class because I think that there is a lot of, I've talked about this like all last year, but whenever there's a recruiting miss or you end the class and you have holes in the class and people just shrug their shoulders and like transfer portal, bro, look at the class, look at what we just brought in the transfer portal, talking about the 2024 class, which was obviously a one-off class. You are not going to have another class where you bring in the national championship winning quarterback, Quinshawn Judkins, Caleb Downs, Julian Sayin, Seth McLaughlin, who ends up turning out to be the Remington Award winner. Like, that's not going to happen again. That was a one-off. You hit every single one of those. Even Will Kazmarek, for what he was, what the expectations were coming out of the University of Ohio. Now, 2 years, he's been a solid tight end at Ohio State. That's a hit. That's a big hit. The only one who wasn't a hit, and really, based on the expectations, I think he was a hit, is the guy that nobody will remember ever from this class. That's Keenan Nelson Jr. Do you remember Keenan Nelson Jr. even? Keenan Nelson Jr. came in the spring portal, the only transfer in the spring portal from South Carolina, went to St. Joe's Prep, friends with Isaiah West, actually. And Keenan hasn't played at all, but was Keenan supposed to play? I mean, expectations versus what they deliver. And that's how we judge our transfer portal players. So all in all, the class of 2024, I think gave the wrong impression as to how good the transfer portal is going to be from year to year for Ohio State, both in the budget that they're going to spend and the hit rate that they're going to have. So when we look at this transfer portal class, you go into this transfer portal class, and we'll start with the tackles because this was the big deal. You went in absolutely needing those tackles. You needed 2 tackles, you thought, because this was before you knew that Austin Sareveld, the guardiest guard that ever lived, was going to end up being a masterful left tackle. So you go into the transfer portal needing 2 tackles, and the first one you get, the biggest hit in the world, the gem of the transfer portal class. He wasn't paid as the gem of the transfer portal class, paid a lot, but not as the gem, Phillip Daniels. Phillip Daniels, who got out of the state of Ohio from Princeton High School in Cincinnati and gets up to Minnesota, starts 4 games for them as a sophomore, second-year guy, enters the transfer portal, and the Buckeyes bring him in. And what are the expectations for the program when they bring in Phillip Daniels? The expectations for the program were this guy's going to be a starting tackle for us at some point. I don't think they were expecting that to be this year. A lot of the fan base did until it started to kind of go around that, yeah, this guy's probably going to need a year of development. Okay, no problem, because you got the crown jewel left tackle. The crown jewel left tackle outside of Isaiah World, who went to Oregon, was Ethan Anianwa. Ethan Anianwa from Rice, who is a very intelligent kid. This guy has all the Ivy League offers. He goes to Rice, which is also a very, that's a highbrow degree from Rice, and played some right tackle, mostly, primarily, played some left tackle, but at 6'6", 340, he looks like just built like an absolute tank. What could possibly go wrong with that guy? If it doesn't work at tackle, you stick him at guard, and he's just going to be a total road grader. Okay, so those dudes come in, and Ethan Anianwa goes from, we're going to talk about Austin Sareveld being the left tackle. Like, what? All right, maybe he's not going to be the left tackle. He must be the right tackle. Wait, Phillip Daniels is competing with him? Yeah, he is. All right, well, he'll be the 6th swing man. And then he starts off the first 3 games, taking 15 snaps from Tegra at right guard. And it's not going great, but the second or the third or fourth game, I thought it started looking better than Tegra. I thought maybe he needed more snaps, but now it's Josh Padilla in that role for the past 2 games. So games 5 and 6, Padilla takes that over. So now he's not even your swing guard. Phil Daniels comes out the other day. Who subs in for him? Ian Moore. So he's not your third tackle. He's not your third guard. It doesn't look like he's going to play much for the remainder of the season unless there's a couple serious injuries. And being the big dollar guy of your portal class, this was the headliner right here. Well, that's a big old miss. That's a big miss with Phil Daniels. So you were 1 for 1 on your tackles. Over on the defensive side of the ball, in the spring portal, You really needed an interior defensive lineman was the thinking, but you would take a defensive end if you could get one, and one became available in the form of Bo Atkinson from North Carolina, a 4-star out of the state of North Carolina who committed to his hometown school. And in his first couple of years at North Carolina, the final year, the last year at North Carolina, put up 7.5 sacks, but didn't play a ton. And the bulk of that production, I think 6 of those sacks, came in 2 games, and they were successive games. So it looked like, all right, either this is just like a one-time deal, this guy just got really hot or really lucky in a couple of games, or it was towards the end of the season. Maybe he was finishing up that season like we saw Jack Sawyer finish up 2023 on fire and carry it over into the next year. Maybe that's what's going to happen. So a 6'6", 265-pound defensive end, and the Buckeyes in Georgia are fighting for him. And don't get me started on the fact that Georgia needed to go into the portal for defensive linemen. That is the biggest indictment on Kirby Smart of any of the indictments that I've leveled at Kirby Smart. And I've leveled a lot. Kirby Smart has the home base with the biggest show in town in the most fertile defensive end recruiting ground in the entire country. And somehow he's going to the portal fighting with Ohio State for a North Carolina commit or a North Carolina kid in the portal. Like, that was just ridiculous. So the Buckeyes win that recruitment. Yay, Bo, here he comes. And my thought was, I think this guy's going to beat out Caden Curry opposite Kenyatta Jackson. I think so. And I hung my hat on that for a little while there. I was very, very wrong about that. Extremely flipping wrong about that. Caden Curry turned out to be a monster that a lot of you guys saw coming. I did not see that one coming. You guys got me on that one. Caden Curry is a total beast. Obviously, Bo Atkinson's not taking any of his snaps. And actually, Caden Curry performing way better than Kenyatta Jackson to this point, which, yeah, definitely did not see that coming. And Bo Atkinson, running a third. He's averaging 23 snaps a game, which is a good amount of snaps. How's he performing in that amount of snaps? What were the expectations from the program? I think the expectations were after Curry and Kenyatta, he's going to be that third dude. So as far as that goes, he's performing up to expectations. But how is the performance on field? It's coming around. It's not been great. I think that there is a cap on his athleticism that I didn't see in his North Carolina highlights that I've seen on the film here at Ohio State. And I think that cap is going to keep him from ever being like, look, he's been compared a lot to Jack. Like, he's not near the athlete Jack is. He is stiff as a board at times compared to the way Jack moved, but he can still produce, and he's still got that hustle in him like Caden Curry. His win rate, as far as like one-on-one, who wins when he's rushing the passer, Kenyatta is about like 12.2%. Caden Curry's like 16.8. Bo Atkinson is 8.8. So he's got some more things to learn from Larry Johnson as far as that goes. Pass rushing, playing the run, he's looked solid, not great. But all in all, I think expectations versus what you got, I think my expectations were a little too lofty, but that had more to do with Caden Curry just stepping up and being the absolute man. But the program's expectations, I think Bo Atkinson is a hit. Maybe you guys disagree with that. Let me know in the comments. Moving along, and we'll just stay at defensive end. Logan George at 6'5", 260, who you pulled out of FCF's Idaho State. You didn't beat Georgia for this guy. He was the number 650th overall player in the transfer portal. And you had to wonder at first, what the hell's going on here? Where did this guy come from, and what led Ohio State to this guy? Turns out this was the same high school that he came out of, that Tommy Togiai came out of, from Pocatello, Idaho. So Larry Johnson had a relationship with the coach, talked to the coach about the player, and the coach gave him the blessing. So Larry brings him in from Idaho State and talked about him in a way that, matter of fact, he was asked point blank, what makes you think that this kid can make the jump from Idaho State to Ohio State? And Larry kind of chuckled, said, oh, he can make the jump. And he sounded quite sure about it. Now, Logan George was injured early. And then the last 3 games he's played, I believe, 8 snaps, and 3 snaps. So he's a guy with multiple years of eligibility. I don't think we've seen enough to fairly judge him. So I think he gets a incomplete thus far. But I got to be honest, the snaps I've seen him out there, I don't have high hopes. I really don't. I did at one point. I was pretty hopeful that he was going to be a dude, but not so much anymore. But anyway, it's an incomplete grade regardless. Moving on. We'll move on to Max Clare. Let's go to Max Clare. What were the expectations for Max Clare? Like, these are the best ones, right? Because Max Clare was a bonus. Keenan Bailey wasn't looking for another tight end. Max Clare, much like Quinshawn the previous year, came looking to Ohio State. A guy who was one of the best tight ends in the portal out of Purdue. And the expectations from the fan base were, this dude's going to be amazing. You look at the film from Purdue, this guy's making catches all over the place, looks like a total stud, a wide receiver athlete in a tight end's body, and a kid who played his ball down in Cincinnati in high school, not from Ohio though, from Kentucky, drove across the border. And some people would say Cincinnati's Kentucky anyway, but drove across the border to go to high school in Cincinnati, goes to Purdue, wants to come talk to Keenan. And the way Keenan recruited him was just absolutely legendary. It's the middle of a national championship run, and he tells him straight up, look, if you want to meet, I'll meet with you, but you got to come in after hours. Like, this is the best tight end in the portal. And a lot of people would run away from that. Max Clare did not, which I think tells us a lot about Max Clare. And right from the rip, I was in love. His play so far this year, the dude's got a ton to learn, and credit to him for coming to Ohio State to develop as a player. But really, I think anything you get from this guy is a bonus because you weren't out looking for a tight end. Now, has he performed to maybe the fan expectation and maybe what we thought he was going to be yet? No. But the last 2 games, 5 receptions, 4 receptions, getting worked into the passing game. Unfortunately, the last game against Illinois, dreadful blocking, and almost got Jeremiah hurt, which, my gosh, if he'd have gotten Jeremiah hurt, I think he'd have been run out of town. But all in all, I think Max Clare so far, and obviously a guy with a couple of years of eligibility, he's a hit. Now, moving along, let's go to, where do we want to go next? All right, so a couple of these guys were obviously specialists. You got Eli Brickhandler. Then you got guys who are more like, your walk-on guys. Ty Howard, linebacker out of Duquesne, who is Bo Jackson's older brother out of Iliangela St. Joe's. Then you had Evan Morrow. You think he's a long snapper. Jackson Corville, the kicker, who we've not seen any of, but Ryan Day revealed to us 2 weeks ago at his press conference that it was a pretty heated battle at kicker. Corville, who's recorded a couple of 50-yarders in college football in a game, and that would obviously be awesome if we could see a couple of 50-yarders, but he didn't win the job. And then we have got Eli Brickhandler, who's just another roster quarterback. We don't expect much out of him, but Justin Tucker from Pickerington, who went to West Virginia, he gets brought back, and Justin Tucker running with the 2s. So Justin Tucker, I think 3 years of eligibility, and having him come in and work his way up with the 2s at tackle, and a guy with proper tackle size, that's a really good thing. So Justin Tucker, definitely a hit. And finally, we go to C.J. Donaldson. C.J. Donaldson, the Buckeyes obviously looking at the running back room coming into this year, you had 2 second-year guys in James Peoples and Sam Dixon, and then you had the freshmen, Turbo Rogers, Bo Jackson, Isaiah West. That's obviously a very, very young room, so they wanted some experience, a veteran guy. They're looking around. Justice Haynes, Quentin Joyner, Haynes out of Alabama, Quentin Joyner out of USC. They start their conversations with those guys. Quentin Joyner goes to USC, goes to Texas Tech, the first domino to drop. And one of the first indications that Texas Tech was paying a lot of money to people was Quentin Joyner bypassing Ohio State to go to Texas Tech. And that was when everybody was like, wait a second, this dude just went to Texas Tech over Ohio State. But he goes to Ohio State. Unfortunately, season-ending injury in the spring, so he's not playing. Then Justice Haynes goes up to Michigan, and Ohio State goes after the number 10 running back in that class, West Virginia's C.J. Donaldson. Now, C.J. Donaldson, we had plenty of years to watch C.J. Donaldson, 2 full years of tape on CJ Donaldson. My expectations for CJ Donaldson is that he was a Jag, right? And then he comes in the spring. He was at about 244, 6'2", 244 at West Virginia. That's what he played at. Comes up to Columbus, and we've seen a lot of these transfers come in and immediately like take on just a different mentality. Like, I'm going to be a better player. He immediately gets in better shape, gets his weight down to 227. And when we saw him in the spring game, we didn't get to see much, but what we did see was one time the lane opened up for him and he took a run straight down the middle, and it looked faster than any of the film we had seen of him at West Virginia. And I'm like, all right, I'm feeling a little excited about this. The guy's a really good pass blocker. He is obviously faster now than he was before. Maybe he can be a decent back here. Well, what we've seen to date of CJ Donaldson is, man, it's not good. It's not good. It's not terrible. I mean, he's a Jag, right? That's what he is. Just a guy. He's just a guy. Got a good attitude, but he lacks a lot. He's a big guy who runs straight up, doesn't take advantage of his weight because he doesn't understand leverage or can't get his pad level low, which, by the way, listen to what Ryan Day said about him Wednesday at his press conference. I was kind of stunned by that. I was kind of like, he is the opposite of what I would call running behind your pads. And when we look at the statistics, out of 286 backs who qualify with a decent amount of carries in the country, 286, CJ Donaldson ranks 258th in yards after contact. So if that's a big deal to Ryan Day, CJ at 2.38 yards, not getting it done. Additionally, when we talk about missed tackles forced, two missed tackles forced on the year. You hit him, he's going down. Jimmy DePeeples, in less carries, has forced 6 missed tackles. So, and James gets more crap from people for going down on first contact. I hear it all the time. He has forced 3 times the amount of missed tackles than CJ Donaldson has at 200. I think he's back up to about 235, to be quite honest. Looks like he's put on a couple of pounds. So CJ Donaldson, honestly, you go back to, all right, is he a hit? Is he a miss? Well, what did you expect out of him as a program? I think it sounds like Ryan Day is getting what he expected out of him. And they continue to use him at the goal line, which that I don't get. We've seen him get stonewalled multiple times by guys 40 pounds less than him because he doesn't run behind his pads. But he's still getting those carries, not just by the goal line, but in, 3rd and 1 from the 50, they're bringing him in. So anyway, I think that he is program. I think that they would consider him. This is tough, man, because it's like, what did they think they were getting out of him? Are they happy with him? I feel like they are. I don't know. He wouldn't see the field if I was in charge. If I was in charge, Isaiah West would be doing everything that CJ Donaldson is doing. That's what I would say. So to me, he's a miss, but I think to them, he's a hit. Anyway, you guys can be the judge. Hit or miss, CJ Donaldson. But all in all, when we look at this class, you got a couple hits, you got a couple misses, you got a couple of incompletes. I think that Justin Terry is a unheralded one that we won't talk about for a couple years maybe, and that's going to end up being a big hit. I think that Max Clare, with multiple years of eligibility, will eventually end up being a very successful player, and we'll think that one was a big hit. I think that Bo Atkinson, with another year versus the expectations, he'll end up being a hit. Logan George, I suspect probably not, but what's the risk you're taking on bringing in a kid from Idaho State? What's the risk? Yeah, he's not making a huge amount of money to come to Ohio State. He's coming and trying to learn, maybe get to the NFL. Outside of Ethan Onyanwa, I don't think you have any huge misses. I guess we'll put it that way. But the point is, they're not going to look like 2024's portal class. They're going to look more like this portal class. And when people say to me, like, shrug their shoulders about missing a number in recruiting, transfer portal, it is important to note that while Ethan Onyanwa not being a hit isn't affecting this current offensive line, there is an effect to the Ethan Onyanwa situation, because you went into the portal class not with wants. You needed 2 tackles in your mind. You didn't know Austin Saravel was going to be an amazing tackle. You went in thinking we need 2 tackles. And when you go in with needs, it means you can't get wants. It means you couldn't get Damon Wilson, who you wanted. You wanted Damon Wilson, but that's money that had to go to Ethan Anyanwa. And Damon Wilson, an edge rusher that Ohio State almost got on the recruiting trail, who went to Georgia, then entered the portal, flirted with Ohio State in the portal. The Buckeyes had to pass. It was too much money. They could have got him. Instead, he's now tearing up the SEC at Missouri. Why didn't they get him? Because they had a need. They had $1 million that they had to spend on a high-profile tackle. So there's always a trickle-down effect when you miss in recruiting, always. It's never a shrug-your-shoulders portal. That's not what it is. I mean, it might be fun for people to laugh and say, portal, you ever heard of it? But there's always a trickle-down effect. So anyway, that's my spiel on the transfer portal. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Appreciate you guys. This will probably be my last video before I go home. Maybe, maybe not. I can't wait to get back to JUCK'S Studios Saturday morning, and we will be live streaming for the Buckeyes game. Maybe we'll live stream for the noon games. I don't know, but I can't wait to get back to my studio because recording this remotely has been quite a chore. I appreciate you for watching, though. As always, talk to you soon. Juck out. That's not how I end a show. Juck on Bucks out. That's how I end a show. All right.